I'm married to my wife, Diana. She gets me out my shell and gets me doing stuff. I actually live next door to my mum and dad. Quite convenient if you want to borrow some sugar or whatever. I work long hours in a factory, 12-hour shifts every day.
See you later, love.
There's not much chance of promotion. It's quite antisocial. I wanted to get my nights and my weekends back. I wanted to change. I left school with no qualifications whatsoever, apart from maths. I was looking around and I saw AAT online. I quite fancied doing that, so I took the plunge. I thought I'd do it by myself and I thought I'd struggle, but I found an online Facebook group. There was a lot of people like me. They all come together and helped each other, and I'm actually running it now as an admin. I get asked quite a lot now for help from people that I don't know. I do find it quite hard to meet other people, especially with the antisocial hours that I work. I'm meeting quite a lot of people that I wouldn't have met if it weren't for AAT. When I first started, I was hoping to be an accountant, but quite a few people have said that I should be a distance learning tutor. And I'm also setting up my own bookkeeping business. I've enjoyed the course throughout. I was worried that I was too old because I was nearing 40. I was worried that I would struggle by myself, but it's been great. It's really opened doors, I think.
From videos to practice assessments to real-life scenarios, we've got all the resources you need no matter what your learning style. And now we've put them all in one place, making them easy to find and giving you a way to manage your studies more effectively. Our new study support not only organises all your resources by unit level and type, but also allows you to bring in support resources from elsewhere. So whether your training provider has excellent resources or you've got a favourite blogger you follow for technical tips, you can now link them all to our study support service, creating your own personalised library of go-to resources. Not only that, but with new features like being able to add reminders, you'll be sure not to overlook any of the key resources ahead of your assessment. You can also add personal review notes, so you'll know which ones you found useful and which ones to go back to if you need to brush up on a certain topic. So no more wasting time going between sites looking for study support resources and trying to remember which ones work for you. Check out your new study support today and start organising your study plans for tomorrow. Go to aat.org.uk/study support for more information.
Guys, just wanted to give a 2-minute video to all of the AAT students out there who are still studying during the COVID-19 lockdown. Now, my number one tip for you guys is to find your workspace within the house. Now, typically, that is going to be the bedroom. So it's important that at the start of the day, you take 20 minutes out just to clean that bedroom, get rid of the laundry, the dirty dishes, get rid of all the mess. And what you'll find by just having a neat, clean and tidy workspace, you're going to be more focused and more productive for the day ahead. My second tip would be to plan the day and to have some structure when you're in the house. That could be an hour of studying and half an hour of breaks, and alternate like that. That is an example of one approach you could take, and by doing an approach like that, you're actually taking the studying and breaking it down a bit, having it into manageable bite-sized chunks. And by doing that, what you're not going to do is overkill and sicken yourself of studying.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's Facebook Live study support session. My name's Jo, I work in the online community team here at AAT. We've also got James, the social media manager, with us. He's working off screen, just helping out to make sure everything all runs as smoothly as possible.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us.
This is our first live video from our homes. So firstly, apologies if the quality might not be as great as our previous videos, but the content will be excellent, that I can promise. We completely understand that motivating yourself is most likely trickier now more than ever, and a hold on assessments may be making you feel demotivated and keeping your studies going. Our video this afternoon will aim to bring back that motivation that you might be lacking at the moment and get that studying back on track. We're going to be joined by the lovely Nick Craggs, AAT tutor at First Intuition, who'll be going through a superb study support session. He's going to be concentrating on the spreadsheet element of the Advanced Synoptic Assessment. We do understand that some of you would have been planning to sit your synoptic this week. But we hope you'll see this as an opportunity to be even better prepared for when assessment centres and colleges reopen. Before we go over to Nick, you may have seen the video we've just shown on the brand new learning portal. The learning portal is a brand new way to manage and maximise your studies and has lots of helpful resources presented in a much more organised way. This allows you to not only to access content as before, but to use new features to plan and reflect on your learning. You can now set study deadlines for any resources and then note what you found interesting or helpful when they're complete. One of my favourite changes is that you can now grab a link to a third-party resources. This could be your favourite blog or an online study video, just like this one, and then add it to your plan as a new learning activity. There's so much more that the Learning Portal has to offer you. So if you haven't checked it out already, head over to aat.org.uk/learning-portal, or just simply log into your MyAT account and type Learning Portal into the search bar. So let's get down to the study support session and let's bring Nick in. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Joe.
Thanks for joining us for today's live stream. So how have you been? How have you and First Intuition been during the lockdown?
From my point of view, distance learning, it's business as usual. We all work from home, but with our classroom centres, that they are shut. So they've moved very rapidly to create a virtual classroom, which has proven really popular.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's incredible about what everyone can do during this really difficult time. But yeah, it sounds like you guys are doing an awesome job. Do you want to give our viewers a quick rundown of First Intuition as well as what your role is there?
Yeah, so First Intuition offer the whole suite of accountancy courses, AAT, CIMA, ICAW, and ACCA. And we've got a lot of centres all over the UK, and we're also heavily invested in distance learning, which is where I come in. Very pleased to say that the other month we won the PQ Award for Online College of the Year.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Nick. So Nick is now going to deliver a study support session focusing on the spreadsheets part. We also have James in on this video, which I introduced you to him earlier. So if you have any questions throughout the stream, just pop them into the comment box and James will read these off at the end of the stream and try and get these answered by Nick. Right, over to you, Nick.
Great, thank you, Joe. Right, so in this Facebook Live, we're going to be talking about an overview of the exam. We're going to look at the exam task by task, and then we're going to specialise in the spreadsheets element, which is task 2.1 and 2.2 of this exam. So after that, we're going to look at how you should prepare for the exam, what resources you should use, and the sample assessment and mark scheme. And then finally, we're going to look at what you need to do on the big day. So let's have a look at the overall exam. So you've got to think of this as two exams. It's split into ethics and spreadsheets. So the first half is ethics, and that is 45% of the overall marks, and spreadsheets is 55% of the overall marks. So there's 100 marks available. So obviously the accountants mongers can see that 45 marks will be in ethics, 55 marks will be in spreadsheets.
Nick,
now,
I can't see your screen at the moment. Do you want to double check that the screen share is enabled? There we go.
So you've got to think of this two exams, ethics and spreadsheets, between 45% and 55%, the lion's share being in spreadsheets. Now, the reason why I say you've got to think of it as two exams, you've got 75 minutes that are in the ethics part of the exam, then 90 minutes in the spreadsheets part of the exam, and you get 15 minutes to upload. However, once you move from ethics to spreadsheets, you can't go back into ethics. And any time that you have spare from ethics, you cannot carry over into the spreadsheets part of it. So you've got to be very, very confident that once you've submitted your answers for ethics, you're happy with them, because once you're into spreadsheets, you can't amend them at all. Now, the exam is split into 3 tasks for ethics, and there's 2 tasks for spreadsheets. So there's task 2.1 and 2.2, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So 2.1 is worth 25 marks. 2.2 is worth 30 marks. Now, there's 100 marks available, and the pass mark is 70%. So you should be able to see that if you do not get into task 2.2, you literally have to get 100% of everything you've entered in ethics and 2.1 correct to pass that exam. Task 2.2 is crucial. And it actually has the lowest pass rate at the advanced level at 57.8% nationally. Now, it also includes knowledge from advanced bookkeeping, final accounts preparation, and management account costing. So it's not just a case you need to know about ethics and spreadsheets. You will need to bring in your knowledge from those first 3 units. So let's look how students do on the exam. So this is taken from the examiner's feedback, which we'll talk about later. But you can see here, the dark green bits are the percentage of students who exceed that task. The medium green, should we say, are the ones that meet the requirements for that task. So you can see task 1.3, which has the written element of ethics, half those students do not pass that task. And you can see in task 2.1, barely 60% of students pass that task, and 2.2, half the students pass that task. So you can see students do very well on task 1.1 and 1.2. Then after that, they don't do quite so well, especially in the spreadsheets side of it. So that's why we're going to look at it today. So let's look at each task in turn. So task 2.1, this will be about management accounting. You will not have to cover anything here about final accounts preparation or advanced bookkeeping. It will only be about management accounting. It does cover pretty much everything from your MMAC unit. So it includes learning objectives 1, 3, 4, and 5. So pretty much only like FIFO and LIFO will not come up. So you need to be really, really clued up on costing for this task. Now, students generally do well on this task compared to 2.2. 58% of students pass this task, which is sort of in line with the overall pass rate. Now, students are very, very good at the actual spreadsheet content. So things like lookups, add and subtract, formatting, they're good with that. However, it's some of the more costing side of things which really cost students marks. I'm not trying to make a joke. So one of the things the chief examiner does say students struggle with is calculating contribution. Remember, that's selling price less all variable costs. So you should be really, really confident with that. Make sure you're confident with that before you sit the exam. And contribution, again, comes into break-even analysis. You want to look at limiting factor analysis. These are the subjects that the chief examiner says students really do struggle with. If statements. Now, that's one of the few spreadsheets technical elements that the chief examiner says that students do struggle with. So you need to be really confident with if statements, because they are actually something that I would think is quite common in the exam, and they're really useful in real life, to be honest. I like if statements. And then the other thing, which is pretty criminal, following instructions. Now, you will get instructions on formatting, you will get instructions on decimal places. You don't want to be throwing those marks away. So be very, very clear how the question should be answered. So not just have you got the right answer, but is it formatted and given in the correct way? So that's task 2.1, the one where students do pretty well on it. But remember, it's only worth 25 marks. Whereas task 2.2, this is the big one. This is 30% of your overall marks. So if you do not get into task 2.2, it's seemingly unlikely you're going to get every single thing correct from task 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 2.1. So some students actually will go straight into task 2.2 first. So whilst you have to do ethics first, and once you've left ethics into spreadsheets, you can't go back to ethics, but you can attempt these questions in a different order. So if you want to start 2.2 first and go to task 2.1, that is fine. Now, task 2.2 focuses on advanced bookkeeping and final accounts preparation. But what is actually, you should be really pleased with, it doesn't focus on a great deal from these units. So advanced bookkeeping, it only looks at learning outcome number 5, which if you don't know your learning outcomes off the top of your head, like I do, that's an ETB. So if anything comes in from advanced bookkeeping, it will be an extended trial balance. Well, there is a bit more that comes in from final accounts preparation. So that's learning objective 4 and 5, which in plain English is it's preparing accounts for sole traders. So that's a statement of profit and loss or a statement of financial position, or it brings in partnership accounts. So that could be current accounts or profit appropriation accounts. So they're the only things that's going to come up from advanced bookkeeping and final accounts preparation in task 2.2. Now, with that in mind, I do have the caveat of in ethics, it will look at the other learning outcomes from advanced bookkeeping, final accounts preparation. So you still need to know them, but that will only ever be in the ethics side of the exam. When it comes to spreadsheets, it will only be an ETB, sole trader accounts, and profit appropriation. Now, only 50% of students pass this task, and 20% of students get significantly below. Now, that makes me think 20% of students, it's not a case of what they did wasn't very good. 20% of students didn't manage their time and didn't get into this task, which when it's worth 30% of the marks, I know I keep stressing that, it's really, really important. It really is. Now, students are only spending 45 minutes on this task on average. So again, they're not giving it the time it deserves. Now, going through the chief examiner's spot, if students are actually quite good with charts and linking data and that sort of thing, but it's more their accounting knowledge which they do seem to struggle with. And I don't know whether that's because most students will start with advanced bookkeeping, then do final accounts preparation, then costing, and then they'll come to advanced synoptic. So it might have been a while since they have looked at their advanced bookkeeping or final accounts preparation notes in class, maybe. The other thing to remember, students do struggle with and customize is presenting data. It's not just about creating data, it is giving it in a manner that people can understand. Because remember, the whole aim of this unit is you're presenting data in to people who are perhaps not accountants. And then other things, like students are good with charts, but remember, it's not just a case of a chart has to be a pie chart or a bar line. It needs to be understandable. It needs to be giving information that people find useful. So it's got to have a key, it's got to have axis lines, and sometimes it might ask for a trend line. So make sure that you are giving every piece of information that is required in the task in your chart. And like I mentioned before, it's the counting knowledge that students struggle with. So how to prepare an ETB, what goes where, and the structure of a statement of financial position. Statement of profit and loss students generally do quite well with. So that's task 2.1 and task 2.2 as a sort of overview of each one. How should you prepare? Now, the first thing, you've got to at least sat AVBK, FAPR, and costing. If you haven't sat them, you physically can't sit this exam. It's not a case of you've got the knowledge and you just will come back to the exam. AAT has systems in place that at least you have an attempt at all three of those units. You can't sit this exam. And like I say, you need to look at the mapping documents for AVBK, FAPR, and AVSY. These are on the new learning portal because like I just said, you don't need to know everything for the spreadsheets element of it. You'll never be asked to do a fixed asset register in a spreadsheet. And the other thing, which is quite relevant to today, which would have been an advanced synoptic window, you need to know which window you are aiming for. So in an ideal world, when you're coming sort of in the middle of your costing unit, you'll be looking at the synoptic calendar and you'll be aware of which window you will be probably sitting your exam in. So once you know which window you're sitting your exam in, be ready before the exam window. So you want to be exam ready at least a week, if not 2 weeks before. The reason being, you don't know what life's going to throw at you. So that gives you a week or two, sort of a cushion. So if something does get in the way, you get a cold or something like that, and you can't study, you will be ready for that window still, because it's not like AVBK where if you're not ready, you can push it back a week. You either sit it there or you wait to the next synoptic window, which can be anywhere between 6 weeks to 2 and a bit months away. So you need to make sure that when you're coming to that window, you're definitely ready. Now, one thing I would say, spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. It's definitely one, though. You can't just sit and read the book. You need to have a go at it, get things wrong. Your if statement doesn't return the right figure, figure out why it doesn't work. You've really got to sort of get your hands into it and play with spreadsheets. Another thing to say is you need to look at exam standard questions in the same style and the same format. And the other thing is they will also be aimed at the amount of time you get for each task, which I know I keep stressing it, is really, really crucial. You need to be making sure that you get task 2.1 done in the amount of time you've got to allow you to get into task 2.2. And the other thing I often get asked quite a lot from students is like, I've never done an NPV in a spreadsheet, or I've never done target costing in a spreadsheet, which you might not have done that in your preparation because there's lots of things that can come from costing into task 2.1. But you've got to remember, you've done it before. If you can do it with a calculator, it is literally the same calculation, but perhaps instead of the times sign, use an asterisk sign. It is exactly the same thing you've done in your course notes, but you're just using a spreadsheet. So you can do it. And the other thing I would bear in mind is I sometimes get students who say, well, I'm a whiz at Excel, so I'll just go and book my exam. There's more to the exam than just being able to use Excel in the workplace, because it is actually a really, really good unit, and it does go in quite a lot of depth with the different formulas and functions. When I was in practice, I used to think I was a bit of a whiz at spreadsheets, and then I came to teach AT and I knew there was loads of things that were in the exam that I didn't know and really, really useful. So you need to really make sure that you have all the skills that is going to come up in the exam, not just what you use at work. The other thing I would say is also when you're sat at home, you'll be using a version of Excel. I would ring the exam centre beforehand and just check what version of Excel that they are using, because it might be older than your version, it might be newer than yours. So although Excel is quite a mature product now, Microsoft don't tend to change it very often. But if they do have a slightly different version, it might be worth going to your local library or something like that, just for an afternoon one day, and just make sure you are comfortable with the version of Excel that you will be sitting the exam on. So that's how you should prepare. So what resources should you use? Now, the first thing you should have a training provider, because their material is specifically aimed at the exam. There's loads and loads of Excel books out there, Excel for Dummies being one. They're great, they really are great, but they're not tailored towards your exam. Now, one thing I'm a fan of, not just in this unit, but in all units, mock exams. Mock exams are absolutely crucial, because what they are literally what you're going to have to do on exam day. So if you can do it in your mock exams, you will 90% certain be able to perform exactly the same way in the real exam. Now, AAT is not just a membership body, but a student body. You get a great deal of value for your student AT subscription. You get loads of resources on there on the learning portal that Joe's just been talking about. So you get Greenlight tests, there's e-learning, there's loads and loads of stuff on the learning portal. You really got to sort of maximize everything that is on there. And the most crucial thing is on there are mock exams, which is the same software that you're going to use in the real exam. You can practice going from ethics into spreadsheets. You really are making the most of them if you go through both of the AT sample assessments. And Excel being a massively popular piece of software, there's loads of YouTube videos, there's loads of websites that cover Excel. So there's always lots of free resources out there. But just be careful, they are not aimed at your exam. They are aimed at people who just use it in the workplace. So it might be taking it too far compared to how you will be sitting an exam, might be missing certain important things. So whilst there's lots of stuff and free resources out there, just be aware it's not aimed at your exam. The other thing is, if you have a tutor, use them. And it's not just about ringing up and saying, I don't know how to do an if statement, but it's also getting your work marked as if it was marked by the examiner. So we're going to cover the sample assessment mark scheme next slide, I think. So you'll see what we're looking for in terms of the answers that you give, and it might not be as you expect. And the other thing I've mentioned before, examiner's report. You should be reading the examiner's report from every unit before you sit the exam, to be honest. It doesn't take long to go through, and you don't want to be making the common mistakes that catch people out time and time again. So, sample assessment and mark scheme. This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. It's on the new learning portal, and it really, really, not just is it an extra mock to practice, but it also shows you what sort of mark you would get as well, because the sample assessments are, here's a question, here's an answer, and there's no sort of feedback as to, well, it was kind of all right, so we'll give you some marks. With the sample assessment mark scheme, it will tell you, if you made one error in this task, how many marks would you lose? Some tasks, if you make an error, you wouldn't lose any marks. It's really, really good. But it is another mock to practice, but it's really, really useful in terms of how it's marked. And the other thing to bear in mind is you've got the own figure rule, and this will be picked up in the sample assessment mark scheme. So, if you make an error, but then use that incorrect figure correctly, you will still get the marks. Now, one thing you might find interesting is each task has its own outcome. We are looking at various things in different tasks. So this, you can see here, is taken from the sample assessment mark scheme. So you can see this is part B. And the first bit is you've been asked to use a formula to calculate percentage to which to flex the budget. And then, so that is obviously the learning outcome for that task. Can the student use a formula to calculate the percentage? Now, the bit that I highlighted is format that percentage with 2 decimal places. Now, you might have not got the percentage correct when you flex your budget, and you will have lost that mark for that task. However, in the next task, whatever figure you've got, if you formatted it 2 decimal places, you will get that mark for that task. So it doesn't matter what figure it is. It could almost be, if your mind goes blank and you panic, remember what we're looking for. So in that part there is, can you put a figure to 2 decimal places? So if you've got no answer, put a figure in and flex to 2 decimal places, and you will at least get some marks. So remember, each task has its own learning objective that it's looking at. So if you got a bit wrong, whatever you do, don't give up. Keep going, because you're looking for marks. So sample assessment mark scheme, that is probably my #1 tip for the Advanced Synoptic exam. So what are you going to do on exam day? Read the questions and follow the instructions carefully. Cannot stress that enough. Formatting is just as important as your actual formula. So it's very well and good that your answers are technically great in terms of if statements, lookups, and things like that. But if they're not in the right format, they're not in the right color, the right font, the right size, you will still lose marks. It's just as important as lookups. And the other thing to bear in mind is Excel is a really flexible piece of software. So if it says use the formula sum, you really should use that formula sum, because if you don't, you will not get the marks for that task. However, you can see here, it says in cell D1, use a formula. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it correctly. And there's various different ways. So, you might have a different answer to someone else. If it works for you, that's fine. You will get the marks. I will stress it again, timing is everything. 2.2 is pretty much the task you need to pass the exam. I'm not going to label that anymore, but I just want to stress how important that is. Now, there is one thing that really does catch students out, which is goal seek. Now, what goal seek is a great formula if you love formulas. And what that does is it uses a backward formula to end up with a desired end result. And you have to take a screenshot of you putting the figures into goal seek, because once you press run, it gives the correct figure that we're looking for, but the marker doesn't know whether you've manually calculated it in your head and just put in the correct figures, or you've used goal seek. So you must take a screenshot of the goal seek screen and save it. Make sure it's saved in wherever it tells you to save it, but it's normally in another sheet. Make sure it's saved before you press OK, because once you press OK, you can't get back to that, and then you won't get the marks for the goal seek task. The other thing to do, sometimes I get mocks, and students make them look beautiful with lots of different colours and everything like that. That's nice. You will not get extra marks for that. Only do what you've been asked to do, because it'll only take up time and you'll get no benefit for that. And the main thing you've got to remember is, this is a testing exam, which is why employers like AAT. It is an exam that really does push you. And so you're there on exam day, and your number one goal is to get 70%. You're not there to turn in a perfect task 1.1, 1.2, and 2.1, and then leave the other task because you won't pass the exam. You're there to get 70%. Anything above that on exam day is a nice bonus, but you're there to get enough marks to pass the exam. So if there's something you're not sure of, move on. Go on to task that you are comfortable with, and hopefully you've got time to come back to it and it figures out. But if not, you're just looking to get as many marks as you possibly can to hopefully get that magic 70% figure. Thank you. I hope you found some of that useful.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was excellent. We hope you really enjoyed it and found it really useful. So yeah, we've had some questions come in. So I'm going to hand over to James, who will go through the questions with you, Nick.
Yeah, we had some asked questions. One here from Angela McEwen. So she wants to know how to extend the trial balance before creating a statement of profit and loss and statement of financial position. She also wants to know how to correctly apply costing formula to an original budget spreadsheet.
Cool. So I'm going to split that into two questions. The first one is how to extend a trial balance. Now, there's many things that come up in a extended trial balance. But as a rule of thumb, items that go into the profit and loss tend to be things that go up over time. So over the course of a period of 12 months is what we normally prepare the accounts for, your sales will go up, your rent expense will only go up, your electricity bill or your charge will only go up over the year. Whereas the statement of financial position, that tends to be things that go up or down over time. So things like your bank balance, that'll go up, and then you pay your suppliers and it goes down. Likewise, your sales ledger control, as you send your invoices out to your customers, it goes up, but then they pay you and it goes down. So if you're not sure, that's a rule of thumb that you can use to decide as to what goes in statement of profit and loss or what goes in statement of financial position. Now, the second part of that question is how do you flex a budget from the original budget? So the first thing, it should be driven by the change in volume. So if the production volume or sales volume has gone up, you'd expect costs to go up. But now remember, in that budget, you're going to have variable costs which will go up directly in line with the production volume. So you will just flex them by that amount. But then you may also have some more tricky costs. For example, you might have semi-variable costs, in which case you need to use the high-low method, which is a really, really important calculation. You use it again at level 4. So definitely make sure you're comfortable with high-low. And then you'll also have fixed costs, which I always trying to find a polite way of saying it, but your fixed costs, don't flex them because they are fixed. So things like your rent bill will stay the same no matter how much you produce. So never, ever, ever flex your fixed costs.
Thank you for that, Nick. I'd just like to remind everyone that's watching, if you do have a question, make sure you write them in the comments below. We've got one more here from Lucy Brett, who wants to know if you're able to provide some bullet points on the best areas to revise on.
Well, for spreadsheets, definitely the extended trial balance, statement of financial position, statement of profit and loss, and partnership accounting. Now, partnership accounting will include capital accounts, current accounts, and profit appropriation accounts. So that is only the only things you need to know for task 2.2. Task 2.1 is pretty much all of costing except for FIFO and LIFO. There isn't really a list of bullet points I can give you for costing because there's an awful lot from there. But with task 2.2, you can be very, very confident that sort of quite small set of knowledge is the only thing you're going to have to do spreadsheets on. But it's got that caveat of you need to know everything from task 1.1 to 1.3 anyway.
Thanks for that, Nick. We've got a question here from Donna, who wants to know how would you split the 90 minutes over the 2 sections?
Well, the first thing I do is, remember, you've got 15 minutes to upload your evidence into the exam software. 15 minutes is probably a little bit longer than it should take, but you've got to remember the marker can only mark what you upload. So if you don't upload anything, if you run out of time, I can guarantee you will get 0 marks. You really want to make sure that you leave enough time to upload. So take that out of the equation, and then to leave, split it between the number of marks available. So task 2.1 is marks and task 2.2 is 30 marks. Now, I've always been a great fan of being quite militant when it comes to time. So you should be able to work out how much time you need for task 2.1 and then move on. And hopefully you can do task 2.2. You find it relatively straightforward. You've got a bit of extra time. You can go back to 2.1. But typically, I would say if you're going past the amount of time you've got for task 2.1, you're probably chasing marks that are quite difficult. Perhaps it's not your strongest subject. Whereas in 2.2, if you manage to get that time in there, you would probably get the easier marks in task 2.2. So I would be very, very militant when it comes to time and split it between 25 marks and 30 marks, and then leave that at 15 minutes for uploading. And if you've got everything saved on your the exam computer's desktop, it is a relatively easy process uploading. You can actually upload it into the AAT sample assessments, but no one will mark it for you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. We've got one more question from Ivan, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this one. It's a bit of a technical question. So in task 2.2, there's a task that requires the students to import data, but from his experience, the function on the exam software doesn't seem to import the data as required. Have you experienced that before, and is there a fix, or is this not something you're aware of?
No, it's not something... Don't get me wrong, importing data is quite tricky, but it is an accessible task. It is one that you should be able to do. I mean, there are various different places you can import data from in Excel. So you can import it from the web, in which case you need a URL, or you can download a text file and import it. But it's not something that, as far as I'm aware, that is technically impossible with the AAT exams. I'm sure of it.
Okay, thanks for that, Nick. Ivan, if you want to send us a direct message with that question, what we can do is you can also send that up to our assessment team and they can double check that for you. Right, we don't have any more questions. Sue says, thank you very much. That was very useful. And we had about 75% of the students on today haven't sat this assessment yet. So hopefully they'll find this useful for when they do.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. So yeah, we wish you all the best and stay safe.
Okay, thanks, Joe. You too.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to watch this video again or any of our other study support videos, head over to facebook.com/YourAAT/videos. I'd also like to point out that student members have access to free Excel e-learning. This is available at aat.org.uk/CPD/resources/Excel-E-learning. Don't worry about remembering that. We're going to add this link to the comment box below. One final thing, if you have some motivational words or study tips that you'd like to share, just like Jay in the video that we played at the beginning of this stream, record a short video on your phone and send this over to communityteam@aat.org.uk, and we'll share your video across our social channels to help motivate all you students. So take care, everyone. Look out for our next study support session coming soon. Thank you.